welcome to Paul's Little Room.
Welcome to my little room. Welcome to my little room. Welcome.
So today I'm going to be reviewing the Sennheiser HD700 headphones. Now I know these have been out for a very long time. In fact, they've been out since 2011. I think they debuted at around about $900, and then shortly after that they were brought down to around about $700. Now unfortunately, or fortunately, they were not a very successful headphone. They were marketed to be in between the 800 and the 600 and the 650 price, around about that price range between the two, but unfortunately consumers were not pleased with the performance, and in fact the performance was closer to the 600 series than the 800. Now, one thing I would like to say is these are available across the board for about $300, also about 300 UK pounds. So I'm going to try and present to you today, is that a worthy buy, and how do they stack up to more recent counterparts in the £300 price range, because that's the price you can get them for in good condition on eBay. I'm just using eBay as the standard this time. Now I'm going to compare them today to the Hifiman Edition XS, because these are roughly 300 UK pounds and $300, and they are also a fully open back headphone, but these are not a dynamic, these are a planar magnetic driver headphone, and these have a much bigger driver. So before I talk about the sound of the Sennheiser HD700, let's very quickly recap the box and the packaging. If you wanted to see a more in-depth unwrapping, have a look at my HD700 unboxing video. So without further ado, this box is very nice. It's very large, my goodness. I mean, to put it in perspective, if I go back here, the HD600 660s came in this very large box. Are they in there? Oh yeah, there you go. They're in there. This is a very large box. But if you see the difference, oh my gosh, the box that the HD700 comes in, it's a beast. It's a massive, massive box. But, you know, if you're going to, when this came out, if you're going to spend $900 on a headphone, you know, you'd want it to come with a nice box. So you've got a very nice picture in grey with silver writing of the headphone. There's no other information on the box, and then as soon as you open the box, you notice there's a very nice, I would say it's almost like a silk finish, cloth finish on the display case with these real metal hinges. Can you see that? So I'm going to slide this out. It's quite satisfying. Oops. Anyway, so what's popped out is this little booklet. Now this is very basic. It just has a few little bits of information. There's nothing glossy, no glossy images of the headphones in there. Very minimal information. But the box, look at that, it's very nice. It's got a real cloth finish. It's card, a thick card with a cloth finish, real metal hinges, a emblem, Sennheiser emblem there, And then when you open it up, look at that. It makes you feel special. When you open this, I imagine this will have been a fantastic unboxing. When these were brand new, fantastic. This is thick foam. You're not going to need to worry about these being harmed if you're traveling with them. Obviously in your car you wouldn't have this in a rucksack or anything like that. Now, I don't have the original cables. This will have originally come with two 3-meter cables. They were rubberized, but I've got this with a aftermarket cable, which I actually quite like. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. And then you can see the headphones are very nicely protected in there. So it's a lovely box. If you have room to display your headphones, it's very nice, but certainly it makes you feel a bit special. So I'll plonk that over there. The headphones themselves, it's a relatively premium feel. There's nice plastics, real metal grille. That's the driver there. Now you can see it's actually fully open around here, and then the part of the driver which well, the part of the back of the driver where it's going to be taking in air for the treble part is actually covered by a metal mesh, with, I would imagine, some other materials in there to help tune the sound. And then this is a real metal yoke here, plastic and metal combination. This is rubber, this isn't leather, this is just rubber. And unfortunately this has aged. This silver here, when it was new, would have been nice bright reflective silver with HD700 written on there. It's got let me see, so yes, so it goes this way around, and for people who are blind, you've actually got braille for left on there, 3 dots, and the markings for right and left are actually at the back. So you can see on there you've got these transfers right and left. Now the gimbaling, you've got a good amount of movement this way, and there is just a bit of, you can see there's a bit of rotation this way. This feels a little bit cheap, you know, the way that gimbals, if this had a little bit more of a smooth movement, you'd feel like it's better quality. And when you adjust these, it does have increments, but there's a little bit, they're not very precise. So, you know, now when this was new, I'd imagine that probably would have felt a bit more precise. But yeah, that's a metal band, sprung steel, rubber. This is a replacement pad, but it's the same as the pad which it came with. These pads were known for failing over time. In fact, when I got the pad this came with was flat. It had lost its shape, and it would have had more of a velvety finish to it, like these pads. And this replacement has more of a leatherette finish to it. Really difficult, unfortunately, to replace that pad. And unfortunately, bits of the rubber, can you see that, have chipped away, just 2 areas when the pad was being replaced. And that's just a regular issue with this headphone. This rubber gets brittle over time, unfortunately. So you see the early reviewers saying, oh, this feels like it's really well built, it could, you know, it's bomb proof, you know, really high quality materials. But in fact, the rubber that Sennheiser has used does degrade over time, and these are tremendously difficult to get a replacement headband for. The other components, so the cup, you can get replacements for. The pads are very easy to get replacements for. The other components are good quality, so you know, plastics, no problem with these. This real metal grill unfortunately is prone to being dinted, and my one has just a few minor dints on it, quite minor, but even though they're minor, they are noticeable if you do that. So Sennheiser really, you know, they could have, for the money, they could have made it more robust, and I feel they'd put a piece of real leather over this. That would have really made, if I was spending 900 quid or dollars on this back in 2011 to 14 thereabouts, I would have liked a real piece of leather there. So before I talk about the sound of these beauties, I do think they look quite beautiful, very distinctive. I'm just going to talk about the cable options. So now this is an aftermarket cable which came with these. The original cable is a 3 meter long rubberized cable with metal and plastic. You know, I think they will have had Sennheiser branding on the ends here, but this one is very nice. I'm not sure of the brand. I like this translucent rubber here. This is quite soft. It doesn't have a memory to it, which is nice. Bit of metal, bit of braiding. This is a little bit springy, not too bad. And then you've got actually this is meant to have a screw on. There you go. 3.5 to 6.35 adapter. And unfortunately this has started to oxidize here, so this is metal and it looks all right. I don't mind it, but this cable's fine for me. I like the length of it. Lengthwise, it's round about I would say it's about 6 foot tall, which is perfect for me. I like 6 foot cables. So when you're attaching the cable, these are not 3.5 millimeter jacks. These are actually 2.5 millimeter jacks, and you'll notice that there's a flat area here. So it's not proprietary. You can actually get round 2.5 millimeter ended you know, cables for these, but this one comes with that flat finish which the original Sennheiser jacks will have had. So you do need to line it up. So you find the flat area in here. Actually, I'll just make sure. So that's left, that is left, and you just find where that flat area is, and then you just very reassuring click, and it feels very secure. So I quite like this cable, I've got to admit. You know, stylistically, it wait a second, just trying to line that up. There you go. So stylistically, you know, futuristic design. This looks like the part, you know. Now, when you put these headphones on, comfort-wise, these are one of the most comfortable headphones that you'll wear because they're very, very light. For the money that these originally cost, I would have wanted something a bit more reassuring weight-wise. I think it's a subtle thing. I mean, you can have headphones which are light, but just want a little bit of heft, a little bit of you know, material weight. But when I put these on, notice the cables actually, they do come forwards so that they don't brush on your shoulders. There you go. Now, I have a very small head, but even I've opened up, I've adjusted this. I would say this is, let me see, 1, 2, 2 clicks for me either side. So I think anyone with a normal size head would have about 5 clicks either side. But you know, these are so adjustable. They go so small that they're, I would say, almost children could wear these when they're in the smallest, you know. So when you wear them, very light, very comfortable, and these pads, these fit very nicely around the ear. You can see that. So they're mimicking the shape of the human ear, and you can see the outside overall design is this lovely kind of well, it's eye shaped or leaf shaped. It's very elegant indeed. So they're very nicely ergonomically designed. I think again, if I wanted to spend £900 on a headphone, before looking at the performance sound wise, I'd want this to, maybe I'd want this to be sprung, you know. This is just the weight of the headphone holding it, making it do that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's just the weight of the headphone doing that. And then I'd want this here to have a little bit of a smooth movement to it. They've repeated this in the 600 series. So the HD660s that I have, it shares this movement. But that headphone, I think it suits it a bit better. So the space inside these cups, it's very roomy. You've got a very nice material inside there with, does it have left and right? No, it's actually got a embossed Sennheiser logo in there. Can you see that? My ears aren't touching any area inside. There's plenty of room. Now, looking at the sound, one thing which is important when you wear these headphones, you want them to be exactly on the middle of your ear. And what I do is I just gently press like this until they're settled on my face. Glasses will, if you have a relatively thick foams, it will affect the seal, and you're going to have a reduction in the sub bass. These are quite sub bass light anyway, but if you want to maximize the sub bass, what I'd recommend, take your glasses off, make these nice and flat, nice and central on your ears, and then you will notice an improvement in the sub bass. But they're not the worst. Particularly closed back or semi-closed headphones will suffer from that more. In fact, with planar or planar magnetic headphones, you'll find that you get a slight increase in the bass performance if there's a slightly loose fit, which is, I know that's a bit strange. So let's talk about the different aspects of the sound with these headphones. So what kind of music sounds good on these headphones? Let's have a very quick look at some examples. So David Gray, White Ladder, a very nicely recorded album. Kate Bush, The Whole Story, that's a best of. Music from the Star Wars saga. In fact, any big orchestra numbers sound very nice on these headphones. The Pogues, the very best of. Folk music sounds excellent on these headphones. Katie Melloa, I love Katie Melloa, and any of her music sounds good on the Sennheiser HD700 because they're quite vocal centric. Mochiba, Big Calm. This is actually a album that, in fact, most of the Mochiba albums are very bassy. However, the smooth nature of these headphones really works well with their music. And finally, Tom Jones. This is an example of some jazz and blues numbers that Tom Jones has sung. Beautifully recorded studio album. Very intimate sound with lovely textures to the guitar and his voice. I've done myself a little frequency graph diagram just by pen. I've looked at, now I don't have a testing rig myself, but what I've done is I've looked at 6 different frequency graphs offered by several different websites to try and get an overall feel for how the tuning is done, what the frequency response looks like in general. Now, what you find with these headphones, before telling you what I think about them, and after I've been listening to various pieces of music, there is a sub-bass roll-off. It's a very smooth sub-bass roll-off, and what you're seeing is it's just a gradual decrease from the mid-bass, and which is very pleasant. There's nothing harsh. In the mid-bass you have a slight hump. I would say around about the 1K, 1 kilohertz area. You've got a lot of detail, a lot of texture. It's very pleasant, and that's the area that people will be complimenting and you know, noticing that detail in the vocals. But then there's a normal dip at 4K. You want to have a slight dip in the 4K region if you want to have a bit of separation and a sense of space. And then there's a big climb, sudden climb up to 6 kilohertz, and a bit of a dip between 7 and 8, and then another spike at 10 kilohertz. So what you're getting is you've got a little bit of sparkle. You've got a little bit of sparkle in the, I would say, the mid treble, but there's a sudden drop off after 10K. Now, what that means is the generous amount of mid bass is possibly going to drown out a little bit of the detail from that treble goodness. So you're not going to get a lot of detail recognition from the upper treble area. So if you have cymbal crashes, violins, high piano notes, they're going to be slightly subdued. But if you have instrumentals which have a very heavy bass pronunciation, so let's say in jazz, if you have a dum ba dum ba dum dum, it might actually start to drown out the vocals a bit if they're female vocalists with a higher register. You'll find that male vocalists with, let's say, here's a good example, Tom Jones, so or Tom Waits, two Toms. If you listen to Tom Jones or Tom Waits, you know, obviously very different styles, but they both have deep, very rich vocals, very strong forward vocals in the recordings of their music. You won't notice the issues as much. Whilst if you have some music with a female vocalist who has very subtle, gentle, but quite high-pitched tones, so let's say Katie Maloa, is that how I pronounce her name? I hope so. I love her music. Unfortunately, her voice will be further back in the mix. If you have one of her pieces of music where it's very simple, you've just got her voice and then just a few instrumentals, it's okay. You know, it's okay. It's very, very pleasant. In fact, these headphones, one thing I would point out is they sound very pleasant across the board. They're an easy, smooth listen, but sometimes a bit too smooth and too easy. If you're really chasing for detail, if you're really searching for those extra details, and if you want a bit of spice and a little bit of, you know, you want a bit of a kick in the music, these aren't the headphones for you. You do have a bit of a kick in the mid bass, so that's very pleasant, but as soon as those vocals come in, unfortunately that takes almost center stage, the mid bass, and the treble, unfortunately, just it doesn't have the liveliness across the board to give you that sense of detail. Now, I'm not saying these lack detail in general, but what I found in certain types of music, I had to raise the volume in order to get a better perception of the details in people's singers' vocals, and sometimes in instrumentals in a slightly higher register, such as an acoustic guitar. You you might want to up the volume to get a little bit more of that perception of detail. If I was going to compare these to the more affordable but more recent Sennheiser 660s, I know that they've been superseded by the S2, but I have the first version. I prefer the sound of the see, I've replaced the pads and the cable. Custom cans cable, by the way. I'm a bit of a custom cans fan if you see my other videos. These headphones, now somehow these use the same driver, but the tuning is completely different. These, you have a wonderful sound of I would say a fullness, but without that sub-bass rumble. You've got an easiness to the sound, but also you've got a space, a grand space to the sound. These are tremendous for sound stage. However, these have more spice. They've got more, they seem to have more soul to them. The vocals in these, because you don't have, I would say, because this is a closed in, slightly more closed in environment you're hearing, these have less wide sound stage. You notice those vocals more, you notice the grain and the detail, and you notice more in the mix with these headphones than with these. Treble wise, these are also rolled off after 10k, as are these. However, these seem to have more spice around the 6k region for me. And I would say, so as soon as you get that little dip, as soon as you're after 4k, let's say 5 to 6k, you're going to notice more detail with these. Now it will vary a little bit if you change the pads. I noticed the pads that these came with, they do tend to flatten over time, and you get a slight different sound base from when you buy them new, and when the pads actually settle in, you actually get slightly wider sound stage, very slightly, when you buy these new, and then as they settle down and the clamp force gets less over time, and those pads start to get a bit squashed, then you'll get less sound stage, but you'll also get a better treble performance with these. These are more consistent as long as you have them correctly on your head. So these pads, there's not much of a distance for them to flatten, really. I think maybe it's because of the width of them. They seem to cover more of an area on your head. They don't appear to have as many issues with that sound stage being affected, but also there's more of a cavity in here for your ear to go in. These headphones, there's not much of a cavity there. I've added some deeper pads on these. These are some real leather hybrid pads, and I wanted a little bit more depth, but also I wanted a little bit more of a sub-bass impact, and that's been quite effective. You will get a bass bump improvement if you have a deeper pad which isn't full velour. This is actually, it's fenestrated on the inside with just non-perforated leather on the outside. So now these are, I would say, the same comfort as these. These are even lighter, and notice they've got that same pivot here, but these just overall have more air to the sound. They've got more, I would say, not edginess, but you've got more spice, more flavour. These come across as a little bit clinical at times. They're almost too smooth. Now, I don't know who was talking about these having a sharp treble. They must have been listening to a very specific sound recording or genre of music. If I look at that, where's that? Okay, so if I look at this chart again, maybe there are some musical tracks where in the recording there's a lot of spice added in the 6K or 10K region, very specifically in those areas. Then you might have a bit of too much of a sibilance in those areas with these headphones. All other genres, all other types of music, these are smooth across the board. Whilst the 660S, I would say these are a little bit better for reference, for picking out what is slightly harsher in the mix. These are more accurate. You can actually hear what's standing out in the mix and also what's missing in the mix. Better with these. So now I'm going to compare a more recent headphone that's still been out for quite a long while, the Hifiman Edition XS. Now, the reason I'm comparing these again is because you can buy these for about $300 or UK pounds. I say that the exchange, because of the exchange rate, there's not a lot of difference, to be honest. Now, if you look at the build, I would say that these are similar with the build. So they're both quite plasticky feeling, but with some metal components. So you've got real metal grille here, you've got a bit of metal on this yoke here, rubber, fake leather, real metal mesh. These very plasticky, fake leather, plastic, metal, real metal grille there. Nice paint, metallic paint job, similar. These are massive, so you know, if you're thinking I'm spending 300 quid, I want a big headphone. You can't get bigger than this. This is a very, very inaccurate headband increment. I don't know how to describe it really, other than whenever you get a Hifiman headphone with this headband, they will vary unit to unit with how I'd say how accurate this adjustment is, which is this one. You can see it's very loose and it's very difficult to go one increment at a time. You know, it's all or nothing, it seems, and you notice it's leaving a scrape mark here, and you've got that movement here, just like with these. You've got that movement here, but it feels that it just feels loose. It feels a little bit cheap, unfortunately. If you're just looking at the cup itself, it's very nice. You've got real metal here, silver paint, deep metallic grey, which does look nice. This is a hybrid pad, which is angled, so it's if you look this way at the back of the ear, it's thicker than at the front, which you don't get with these. These are just the same at the back and at the front. Yeah. You've got this bit of cloth here for comfort and breathability, fenestrated on the inside, and these aren't real leather, but they feel very, very good. And then ear shape again, but this is massive. So if I put these on, you see how my little head gets swallowed up, and in fact I'm not kidding, I literally have to have them all the way to the bottom. These are just so far that this metal component actually goes inside. Can you see that? It's a bit strange until it's actually rubbing, and only now do these feel correct. My ear's in the center there. Now the problem is, this is, look, there's not enough clamp force for me. I tried bending this. There is metal underneath here somewhere, and it did improve it a little bit, but unfortunately these just, it's something which I'm not keen on with these headphones. Sound wise, it's a different matter, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Oops. Anyway, cable wise, you've got more standard 3.5mm jacks here for the Hifiman Edition XS. You've got this very nice chamfering here, so it means it's difficult to, it's a very nice system. You know, can you see it's almost conical? And when you put these in, it just has a nice feel to it when you put the cables in. These almost lend themselves well to trying out different cables or to unplugging quite often. And in fact, these are designed for travel, which is, I know that's a bit strange for a fully open headphone, but what you'll find is with this chamfering here, these lend themselves well to taking the cable out very regularly. Now these come with a very nice box. I'm just going to get that. So here's the very nice box which the Edition XS come in. It's a lovely hard case, and to put them in there you just fold them like this, or you can do that like that, and then you plonk them like this in that case, and there you go. It's a very nice case, and I don't know, I'll probably take these to, I'm going to be going to Can Jam London in July, and I might take these to make comparisons with other headphones. There you go. It's a lovely little thing, and unfortunately you're not going to be travelling with the Sennheiser display case. Anyway, so £300. Now it's £300. These do not come with a travelling option. So are they easy to drive? Are these easy to drive? Because if you're travelling, if you're going to be in a hotel, you want your headphones to be versatile. You want to be able to play them on your phone, or at the very most a small DAC, and these you can. So the Edition XS, they do scale up a bit. If you have a good amp, you're going to notice a performance improvement, but a lot of portable amps, DAC amps, which are out there now, can drive these superbly. Again, £300, you're not going to want to buy a top of the range portable DAC, but if you buy a decent enough portable DAC amp, you can power these really well. Now these, they scale up well. They're known for sounding good. Most of these Sennheiser dynamic headphone range are designed to work well with tube amps. I don't have a tube amp, but I do have a preamp which adds a little bit of flavour, a little bit of texture, a bit of warmth to the sound. If you have a very clean sounding solid state amp, then you'll notice that these, they lack a little bit of oomph, a little bit of life, a little bit of texture, and you might want to experiment with your amps. See if you can add a bit of texture and body to these. These sound very good with solid state amps. These have a natural warmth to the bass across the board, but these also have a lovely pop. Just power these just well enough with a portable DAC amp or your home setup. You don't need to spend a fortune to make these sound really nice. These sound good on a affordable, so I'm actually using the Topping A90. I need to try and borrow some more amps to try and do some comparisons with, really. These, for the money, they're more versatile. you're going to be able to listen to more genres of music and feel a bit happier with these. If you listen to electronic music, these have a pop. They've got the sub bass of these. It's got a real body and thump to it. There is a slight sub bass roll off, but when these are really expressing a solid thump, so if there's a solid thump in your music, these express it well. You're going to notice lots of detail in that bass. And also there's a really clear separation, lovely clear separation between the sub bass and the mids. You're not going to have any muddiness. These come across as a little bit more muddy, and it's possible to overpower these with overly bassy music. They will come across as a bit muddy. These, you can up the volume, and they're going to deal with it very well. Let's talk about the comparison between the vocals on these and these. These, they have a very romantic, very beautiful rendition of vocals. As I said before, you might want to up the volume if the female vocals are laid back in the mix, because they do sit slightly far back. If the vocals are set quite far forward, these outperform these. These have a natural slight recess to the vocals, but also the vocals, they lack a three-dimensional aspect that these have. A little bit like the Sennheiser Openback. Not as bad. These, I would say these are better vocally than the Sennheiser Openback. I found them to have almost like a flat square of of vocals here. It's very strange with the Sennheiser Open. They worked exceptionally well for musical numbers, for instruments. The Sennheiser Openback were fantastic for instrumentals, but vocally I wasn't a fan. These, I'd say they're a bit of a halfway house. So you do have a wider spread of the vocals, but it is relatively flat. So the way any resonant tones coming from the vocals, they don't tend to spread out round this way, whilst you've got more of a spread, even spread, more of a wide spread of the vocals with these, but they're further back. The vocals are very slightly recessed, but they're not quite as recessed as these compared to the bass. But what you do find, these do have a fantastic sense of separation, really specific separation in your music mixes, which is fantastic. So if you have modern music which is well recorded with, let's say, a good example is electronic music. You've got different sounds in specific areas. You can really pick out those different areas with these headphones. And there's good isolation of the vocals as well. This is a very fast headphone, and I think that's one aspect which doesn't benefit in the vocal area. If you have, let's say, a vocalist with quite a warm body to their vocals, or if you have a vocalist who has, you're really noticing a very, very subtle range of notes that they can perform, these come across as having relatively flat vocal. You've got detail, but it's it lacks a little bit of that body. It's not coming round and joining the other instruments. These turn up the volume, and then you're going to notice that the vocalist, you can hear the voice bouncing off the walls, and you can hear it trailing off around the edges. Genres of music. These are terrible for electronic. The reason I say that is because they don't have enough of an impact, and there isn't a definitive separation between all of the elements that you want in electronic music. They're too smooth and they're too wide. These, the Hifiman Edition XS, they've got a wonderful punch, they've got a wonderful separation and definitive positional aspect to the different parts of the music mix. Perfect for electronic music. Fantastic, you know, really fun. They're not too fatiguing because you've got the performance. If you have a good overall performance in the sub bass and mid bass, it tends to improve any sharp tones you have in the treble. They're not going to be shouting forwards. It's going to be more of an even mix for you to listen to. It's going to be more bearable, but you've got that punchiness with these. The whole thing is quite sleepy. The whole experience is very dreamy and very smooth, almost creamy. No good for, I would say, they don't look the way they sound. If this looked the way it sounded, it would be made out of rosewood. Rosewood with maybe I don't know, something fancy looking there. These sound like almost like a very gentle wood instrument in their delivery, but unfortunately they lack a bit of texture where you really search for texture in the recording. So before I finish this review of the Sennheiser HD700, I'm going to ask, would you spend £300 on this headphone? Now, I would definitely say these are worth a try. Pick them up for about £300 and give them a try. If you can get a pair which don't have damage to them, you know, are in good condition, you might love this sound. You might fall in love with this sound because you know, you might not want harshness in your musical recordings. You just want to be able to relax and listen to music without going, oh, you know, you don't want to be intensely focusing on the treble and the bass when you're listening to music for long periods of time. You can wear these for hours. The accuracy of positioning isn't actually quite as good as with these, but you've got a wonderful, grand, spacious environment. These aren't as deep this way, but they're deep that way. They've got a bit more fun with modern genres, so with, you know, EDM, is that EDM? I think that's it. Electronic music, rock music. These do rock music well. With your Sennheiser HD700s, you just want the pads to be nice and new. You know, if they're very old pads, they're going to flatten and you're going to have performance losses, and you probably will have a decrease in the bass performance as well. So there you go. It's been a little bit of a ramble, as always. I love to improvise a little bit in my reviews. I'm going to go ahead and sell these on my eBay site. So I'm going to sell these at a very tempting buy now price. I'd say these are fantastic headphones, but I have a lot of fantastic headphones. I don't have much room in my little room to keep all of the headphones I'm listening to. Anyway, so it's been enjoyable comparing these, enjoyable trying them out with different you know, genres and comparing them to more recent headphones. Yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of them. Do any of you have those headphones? Do any of you have the HD600 series? Are these a good comparison, or do you feel that the HD600 series are far and beyond better performers than these? Let me know what you think. So Finally, I'm going to conclude this video by saying there is a prize draw that I'm doing. If I can hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away this lovely open heart 3-meter braided cable with a 4.4 Pentacon terminal, and see it's got very nice 3.5mm jacks, very nice. If I can hit 50,000 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away these Hifiman Diva Pro headphones. They're in mint condition. Well, I got them from you to review. And if I hit 100,000 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away this mint on card 1983 Luke Jedi figure from Kenner. There you go. And it's genuine, never been opened, so someone will be a lucky winner. I might never get to 100,000. But if I do, there you go. So anyway, I've enjoyed this a lot. Thank you very much. Goodbye.